though well-meaning and probably doing the best that he can, that's not the way I would suggest to approach a first interview. I think that the path to conviction, in some cases even death penalty, is strewn with individuals with good intentions. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that our relationship with our client has to be intentional. Because not only are we there to help the client can be a very big help to us. What I'd like to discuss are some do's and don'ts in approaching our relationship with our client. The first thing, do that I would give is to plan your first interview. Keep in mind that there are some biases at work here. We talked throughout this conference about biases of different people. There are some biases that work with our relationship with our clients. We have biases towards our clients, and our clients have biases towards us. The American society generally does not trust what it doesn't pay for. Whether you want to come to grips with that or not, you're going to have to deal with that when you deal with our clients. They deal with it in healthcare, they deal with it in education. Anything that poor people access, people have a tendency to not trust it. So you have to overcome that bias. Our client has certain biases, but we also have certain biases. We tend to think that all of our clients are either mentally ill or given to some type of addiction. Some of our clients are very bright. Some of our clients are not guilty of what they're charged with. Some of our clients can be of great help. So we need to be deliberate in our relationship with our client. And we need to be smart about how we plan that. And you need to plan about how you approach that first interview. And as I grew in experience and had some degree of bargaining power with prosecutors, I made it so I never approached my client with a plea on our first visit. Think about that. And think about what you have to do with a prosecutor in order to be able to work that deal. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's important. I don't want to be talking to my client about pleas on our first visit. What do you want to be talking about on your first visit with a client? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Kind of give them a rundown of the procedures so they know what to expect coming up.
Okay, that's important. In simple language, not in legalese, in simple language. Yes, ma'am?
I need to find out who they are.
Okay, very important. Is there anybody in here who is really, really ticked off about talking about themselves? Okay, you never know in a room full of lawyers, you never know. I think it's important to get the client to talk about themselves, to tell you a little bit about who they are, what they like. She was able to tell me about her children. That's important to her. I don't want to have to wait for her to ask me about that. I want to be asking her about that. We have had the opportunity to hear individuals in this room demystify some very important things. The knowledge that has flowed back and forth has been tremendous. But these people that we represent don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's very, very important. Some other things, do's. Not only do you ask about the individual that you are representing, you ask about their family. Because that shows them that you're interested about where they come from, but it also may reveal to you a hot button. And the clients that I have represented, there's always been a family member that they turn to for advice. that they run everything by. I want to know who that individual is. I'm not saying that I'm a control freak, but there are certain things that I would like to control. And if I think it is best for the client, I want to be able to persuade whoever that hot button is that this is in the best interest of their relative and my client. So I want to know who that is. I want to visit with that individual. I want my client to know that I'm going to visit with that individual so that they know the efforts that I'm taking to bring that individual who they feel is very important into this mix. So that's very, very important. In a forensic discipline case or a forensic science case with DNA, don't try to explain the basics of forensic science or forensic discipline to your client. Keep in mind that we don't have the luxury of spending hours and hours per interview with our client. That time could be better spent with relatives or doing something else with our client, such as informing them of the things that are going to be happening, who's going to be involved with it, those types of things. But trying to get someone else to understand the things that we're going to be trying to learn during the course of the trial, think about whether or not you want to spend time doing that. Don't make promises that you can't keep. I would be very limited in making promises, first of all. But certainly promises you can't keep or you don't think you can keep, be careful about making promises. Because when you give your word, you want to make sure that you can keep it. Now, this is no different from an individual that you meet in a social setting that you want to cultivate. Well, this is an important setting, and you want to cultivate this client. And there are certain do's and don'ts that you want to follow. Keep your word. When you do make a promise, make sure that you keep your word. Keep the promises down, but when you do make a promise, make sure that you keep it. As was indicated here, with aggravated, there's some point where you're going to have to get into legal definitions so that when they go into court and they hear things, they'll understand what they mean. But try to explain things to your client in plain, simple language that they can understand. And it's not just because they are of lower intelligence than you. There are some very smart people outside of this profession who thinks that we talk crazy. Just like hearing a bunch of doctors talk, That's the tool of our trade. It's not the tool of their trade. So talk in simple and plain English. One of the things that we want to keep in mind is that in terms of talking to people that may help you during the course of the trial, your client may be of immeasurable help. Whether it's forensic science or not, they will be able to tell you individuals in that community that will be able to find witnesses for you, that will be able to identify individuals with weird nicknames. They'll be able to locate Mookie, Shirley, or whoever else in the neighborhood that maybe your investigators may not be able to reach. What I'm trying to say is, and I'll talk more about the client themselves, but the clients to us can be a resource. They can be a resource and they can be part of a team. In a lot of places, they are teaching the team approach to trying cases. To involve in a case like this, at some point, I'm going to have to introduce my client to a social worker or a lawyer who is working as a mitigation specialist. Because that mitigation specialist will be able to go into areas I won't be able to go into. There's going to be a lot of new people that my client is going to meet that are experts in discipline that she doesn't even understand. Yes, sir.
One of the things I noticed with a lot of my clients,
I'm sorry, speak up a little bit.
I'm sorry. One of the things I've noticed with clients is a lot of times they feel their system is kind of totally beyond their control, and they're passive, kind of passive, just the justice system moves along. And if I'm able to give them specific tasks as far as what this is for, becoming involved in counseling, certain facilities have some counseling to take place to be aggressive if they're in, or if they're out, if they try to involve in substance use or reconnect with positive social services. They, even if the case ultimately would try to be beneficial if there's a sentencing litigation there, the thing I've noticed I've developed commonality with my client or partners within this thing together, and then I'm able to have better communication, better confidence, and better trust with them than I might have otherwise.
That's an excellent point. Everybody hear that? Giving your client tasks, developing common goals, and I mean you don't have to reduce it that way, but things that you want to get done together, ways of recognizing with your client that there is social capital in their neighborhood, in their community, that both of you can tap if you work together. I think that that's very important, sharing part of the workload with your client, because anybody who's involved in a legal proceeding, even if it's civil, clients feel powerless. And we have to be able to take back a little bit of that from our clients. Anybody else in the observation?